Okay, so we're holding chapter 16, and there's a very fundamental notion in our Avodas Hashem, which Al Rebbe alludes to over here, or actually deals with, because it's very important, that I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just to be able to easily flow into the end of the Perek. There is the fact that the heart is a great contributor, like to all things. Like someone who wants to be motivated with a job, the heart plays an important role. Naturally so. The heart plays a very important role. You motivate to something, you have an ambition to it, you have a drive to it. Your performance is way different than someone who doesn't have a heart. And again, the heart has different components: the love, the fear, which in the drive to it, staying away from things which might be harmful to this project and so on. There's never many components in the heart, but when the heart is in function, it complements and the entire performance of any job or any task which someone is involved with. Similarly, in Avodas Hashem, you can't compare someone who lives a life of Torah in thought, speech, and action when it's based on his drive of his heart. He loves Hashem. You can imagine how he does the mitzvah so differently, so uniquely. He fears Hashem. It's a different staying away from an Avera. So the heart plays an important part in our service to the Almighty, which again, the service itself, as we learned many times, is really divided into thought, speech, and action. If you look in the Torah, put on tzitzis, that's action. Speak words of Torah is speech. Have a pure thought is thought. But the heart, even though there's two mitzvahs of Ava v'Yira, v'Havtas Hashem Elokecha, Hashem Elokecha Tira, but nonetheless, it's a basis. The heart is a basis for all the mitzvahs, and there's no comparison. Like we said, if someone he has Ava v'Yira, excuse me, if his heart and love and fear to Hashem, his whole performance again of Torah mitzvahs are so unique and so different and so special. But the question is, and what produces a good feeling? What produces a feeling of love and fear? Obviously the mind. You understand intellectually, invest in the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That ultimately ignites the feelings, the emotions towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the question is, what if someone doesn't have the feeling? Feelings of something would fluctuate, and there's ups and downs on a constant basis. And like we said, in every relationship, it's normal that the feelings will fluctuate. And the question is, what if the feelings are not in the mode? It's not happening at that point, and the person has to perform that mitzvah. He doesn't have a drive, a love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as an example. Which again, it's not the perfect scenario. We should try to have Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem in our hearts constantly. These are part of the Sheish Mitzvahs Tzmidiyos, the constant mitzvahs. But you cannot say that a person has the same expression of love to Hashem every time, at all times the same. It's not, and it's normal, depending how much you invested your mind that very day. The idea of learning Chassidus, for example, learning anything which speaks about Gadlus HaBayt, the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How much time you invest, that's how much your heart will kick in the heart, again, expression and function in Avodas Hashem. But nonetheless, and many times a person spends a certain amount of time, but because of other circumstances, it doesn't allow, may it be spiritual problems, spiritual illnesses, or different circumstances, where it doesn't allow the heart to ignite towards the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So heart feelings are fluctuation of feelings are very normal. If it's the ideal, I wouldn't say, but it happens to happen throughout. And in every relationship, a relationship doesn't mean that a person has to feel with his other party the same day as they got married. It's not normal. It's nice, it's ideal, but it doesn't exist. So the question is, so there's two problems over here. Because we know feelings contribute so much to our performance, what happens to the Torah mitzvahs? What happens to the person's Torah mitzvahs when the time he doesn't have the feeling? So Rebbe says basically the word again. We said the key word over here a few times. Let's say yos. So yos makes sense. It's fitted for the person still to go on and do what he has to do. Just like in a relationship, when you have a feeling towards another party, you don't have to say, it makes sense. Doesn't have to say, it makes sense to do this and that. It doesn't have to make sense. You're running to do it. right? You're running to do it. If there's a love to somebody, you're running to do it automatically. Consequent to your love, you're doing consequent to your love. You're doing this what the person asks you to do. Could you go get me a chair? If you love somebody, you're running to get the chair. What if the love is not in function, or the love is in a state it's not, I wouldn't say extinguished, but it's not there so fervorous, it's not there so, the love is not so potently an expression, a state of expression. The healthy person understands the relationship exists regardless of what I feel now. You want a chair? Oh, but I'm going to get a chair. Without the also, just going to get the chair for you, for the other party. Because you know that it has to always, you have to always try to maintain the relationship on a constant basis in a way that despite you don't have that particular good feeling now, but you're still going to do everything you have to do. Because that's a healthy relationship. You don't wait and you say, you know, when I'm going to feel strong for you, then I'll obviously run to get you the chair. Well, that's nice. It's an ideal that your feet should run based on what your heart feels. But what if it doesn't? A healthy person who wants to maintain a healthy relationship understands, even I don't feel, I'm going to do it anyways. That's called Yasa in the context of Avodas Hashem. The Rebbe says it makes sense. Your feeling are not in a state of total manifestation or any strong level of manifestation. Do it anyways, because that's a healthy relationship. Because you know intellectually it's the right thing to serve Hashem on a constant basis and never let go. No one in his healthy right mind doesn't want to disconnect even for a moment from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But I don't feel. You know it's the right thing. Then the Alter Rebbe, and again, to understand what we're going to learn today, then the Alter Rebbe says, but there's another problem. The other problem is, love and fear, we know, are called wings. The two Ava v'Yira are called Gatfin in Lashon Hazeh, wings. What is the wing, the purpose of a wing? For example, the bird. The bird is on ground level if it doesn't have wings. What the wings does, it elevates the entire body of the bird on high. Right? So now let's get back to Avodas Hashem. There's the guf of the Torah, the body of the Torah mitzvahs. The Torah I learned, the mitzvahs I performed, but if there's no wings, it stays on ground level. Ava v'Yira picks it up on high. When we say on high, in the context of Avodas Hashem, means deeper within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, deeper within HaKadosh Hashem. And we're not going to go into, we elaborated a little bit on this. What is the point that the relationship should be, that it should be brought in deeper? Because the deeper it goes within, that's the way they reflect the relationship. It reflects in a way of the inner towards the inner. Like we give an example. When somebody gives somebody a watch, for example, as a gift, if he just throws it to him and says, you know, you just have to know the time, that's why I'm giving you the watch. That's, in the end of the day, the only thing the person's going to know, he is going to know the time. There's not going to be any sentimental expression or sentimental impact of the watch if he's just, okay, you want to know the time, right? You're getting a blade, just take the watch. As opposed to when it's presented as a gift, you love the person, or a father and a son, you love your achievements, and there's a lot of sentiment placed in that gift. So it's not only I know the time, it looks externally the same. It's not I know the time. Every time I look at the watch, I'm touched by the presentation, or I'm touched by the person. The recipient is touched by the giver, because it was presented differently. Because there's the watch, which is the physical, the body itself, but then the connection which is beyond just the body of the watch itself, which is a pnimius of an inner connection to an inner connection, and vice versa. Similarly, the Torah mitzvahs could be done on the surface. In other words, it could be done and remained on ground level, did it robotically as an example. Then the Ava v'Yira, if I did it with love and I did it with fear, elevates the mitzvah towards a deeper part of Hashem. And if it's a deeper part of Hashem, means to say Hashem is more touched with the Torah mitzvahs, and Hashem reciprocates accordingly. We have a more deeper and profound relationship with Hashem. We mentioned the story last week of the Baal Shem Tov once went into a shul, and he ran out, and he went into a shul again, he ran out, and they asked him, well, why can't you go into shul? It's full of Torah mitzvahs. So what's the problem? It's a good thing, right? He says the problem is that the people who performed Torah mitzvahs had no true Ava and true Yira. They didn't have true love to Hashem, then true Yira from Hashem. And again, Ava Yira is not a badge, or, I'm probably Yira Shemayim, look at me. That's what someone said about me. You're talking about real Avas Hashem. God is in the conscious mind, and the truth, you have a booming feeling and drive and love to Hashem, and similarly Yira, reverence of Hashem. Godliness is real. and therefore they feel it, and it's real to them again, and and they have fear and awe and reverence of Hashem. So he says when there's Ava V'Yira, the Torah mitzvahs don't stay on the ground level; they're elevated within the most pnimis, the inwardness levels of Hashem. And then the relationship, the reciprocation of Hashem to the Yid is also on a deeper level. And that's why love and fear, Ava V'Yira, play a very important role in Avodas Hashem, because it establishes our relationship to Hashem in a much deeper level. So that's what the Baal Shem Tov was saying, I can't be here, because the Torah mitzvahs were performed, but they remained on ground level instead of being elevated on high. So what do we do with that? There's a problem. So when we say you're dealing with the relationship itself, then you can tell the person, Yasa, do it anyways. Because in every healthy relationship, the feeling will fluctuate. Do it anyways. Maybe you'll just do it that it's helpful to arouse that good feeling of the other person. But regardless, what's the result? You do it anyways because that's the right thing. No one wants to break a relationship because I don't feel now. A healthy people who have healthy relationships in every level, spousal, partners, parents and children, pupils and teachers, you don't have that feeling toward the other party, but you'll do it anyways. You'll do everything because you know that it's important always to keep a straight line in the relationship with another person, and not to wait till how much you're going to feel for the other party. So that's one thing. But there's another problem. The problem is, what about the Torah mitzvahs? If you won't have the fear, good, you're going to do it anyways. But the Torah mitzvahs will always remain on ground level. And remain on ground level, it's not going to be elevated within the pnimis of Hashem. So true, you have the body of the bird, like the Gemara says, even a bird without wings, in the end it's kosher because there's the body of the Torah mitzvahs. But in the relationship with Hashem, it's missing that component of love and fear, which is, in the end of the day, brings out the pnimis, the inwardness type of connection with either the Eibishter. What do you do with that? So you can't command on feeling, even as vahafta, which means there is a command on feeling. But let's talk on the that itself needs to be explained. What does it mean vahafta, command of feeling? Is a feeling is or I love, or I don't love. And if I don't love, you can't command me to love. And if I do love, you don't need to command me. But that's a separate question. How does Torah say v'hafta? But in this case, what do we do if we agree that not always the love is there? So what's going to be with the Torah mitzvahs? The Rebbe answers this question over here. The Rebbe says now we're going to see where the where is this? Harei Tvuna Zu. So Harei Tvuna Zu, which is the I have to find it in the English, looking in the original text. Here, the page begins, thus we see, that what motivates this person actual observance. Thus we see. You see the page that begins, thus we see? Yeah. Got it? So in the middle of the page, or a little off, lower than the middle, it says Harei Tvuna Zu, translated then when the
he implements the resolution.
He implements the resolution, this tvuna, right? You see that? So what he's saying over here is, what's motivating me to do this? I don't have feelings, but at least my mind is dictating and saying, well, that's the right thing to do. But the problem is, again, if you don't have the motivation, what's going to be with the Torah mitzvahs? So he says, you should know that because ultimately what's really driving me to do it, because there's a structured understanding and saying, move on with the relationship, despite you don't feel, in speech, in thought, in of Torah, mitzvah means in the actions of mitzvahs, and the mind, the dictator of a mind, that will be the wings. Could you imagine a bird without wings, and you say, okay, you take a piece of something else which is not a wing and say, that's going to be the wings, now start flying? The bird usually won't fly. How is the mitzvahs being elevated just because of the dictate of my mind, or the understanding, the establishment of mind? I don't want to disconnect myself from the Eibishter. I'm going to do it anyways, even I don't feel. Feelings are wings. The tvuna, the brain dictate, are not wings. So how does that elevate the mitzvah? The answer, ki ilu, in the end of the day, the mitzvahs will be elevated. Ki ilu asuk ben b'tchilu ruchim amamosh asher bizgalus libei. Hashem throws in a bonus over here, as we're going to see. It's Hashem's input, and He says now. Even though you do not have any overt love and fear, or fear and love, fear and love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bizgalus in a revealed, manifest manner, you don't have that, because that would be the ideal wings. But Hashem is going to use another set of wings, which is your understanding, the dictate of your mind, the intellectual, structured dictate of the Yid, which always wants to maintain a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that will be the new set of wings. And it will be as if you serve the HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chafetza v'chasheku chukumurgeshes b'libay, with a drive, with a desire, in a tangible feeling in his heart, v'nafshe, in his soul, atzmei Hashem, which is thirsty to HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'neidish be'esha avasa sheb'libay, because of the fiery flame of love which is in his heart, like we said before, which means all these expressions are heart expressions. They're not mind expressions. They're not intellectual expressions associated with intellect. It's a heart expression. It's as if you serve the Kodesh Baruch Hu, the revealed dimension of you. In other words, the overt love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, again with all these feelings and yearnings and thirst to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as if, again, which is associated with heart, as if you serve the HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all that, even though you did not serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all that, because it wasn't there, and the only reason you served is because some intellectual calculation said to serve. So the intellectual calculation now become the wings. How does intellectual calculation become the wing? The answer, because in the end of the day, it's this which brought the person to get involved with Torah mitzvahs. If he would not ponder in this, under structured, under calculation and structured understanding, he would not occupy himself in learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. He would only occupy himself in the needs, in the demands of the body, solely in the demands of the body. Now you look over here, the Rebbe says, Oisik Bahem. Not Stam, he learns, he looks over here, he opens a little sefer, closes it, goes to the davening books, and look, I davened, I did the mitzvahs, and I shook the lulav nesek, and I put on. No, Oisik Bahem, which means it became his Oisik, it became his occupation. That type of drive and occupation in Torah mitzvahs is ultimately driven by this calculation, and it was mind calculation, missing the fervorous love, but mind calculation, that is what contributed to the ASIC, the involvement in Torah mitzvahs, because if you would not have that, you'd be only involved in the demands of your, solely in the demands of your body. Even someone who's a assiduous learner by nature, by nature, nonetheless, man by nature loves his body more than anything else, and even by nature he's a learner. He's someone who doesn't mind sitting in a place and continuing to learn for a long time, but nonetheless it'll break apart, because in the end of the day he loves his body by nature so much more, and the only reason why he could maintain that constant notion of kima mitzvahs, learning Torah and doing mitzvahs in a way of asik, is only because that structured calculation has invested in the mitzvah and says, I will want to maintain that perfect relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu despite I don't feel. And so it seems interesting that you could take another set of wings, not the love and the fear, because love and fear is not there right now. It's just more of a structured calculation with a person which dictates, and the person tells himself, I want to maintain this relationship. That becomes the wings to elevate the Torah mitzvahs on high. So there's one problem is since when does this happen? Since when this tavuna, this structured mind, the result, the dictate of the mind, since when does they become wings? He says, first of all, the idea, why is love and fear wings? Because it's something from within the person. It's a deeper dimension within man. That's why it could become wings to elevate the Torah mitzvahs. So he says, in the end of the day, the brain is also something within. It's not an external idea. The brain is not something which you could, present over here, or it's not something which. Its most deepest, profound parts of man is his brain. So if the brain dictated that the person should be Isaac the Torah mitzvahs, so there's something which is on high within man, which is investing in the Torah mitzvahs, hence it elevates the mitzvahs on high as well. So is it the same as overt love and fear? Probably not, on its own. But here, the Alter Rebbe adds over here, this is something which the Eibishter's input, and Hashem says, look, Hashem agrees to the fact, Hashem is very conscious with the fact that feelings will always fluctuate, and he sees this person, despite his feelings are down to Hashem, meaning his love and fear, nonetheless, he's yasa, he's diligent, he's determined to continue and maintain this healthy relationship, because again, this structured intellect and calculation in his mind, never to leave or even be weak in the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, comes Hashem and says, you know what? I'm going to use that as the set of wings to elevate your mitzvahs on high. And the Alter Rebbe teaches so beautifully an expression of the Gemara and the precise wording the Gemara uses. This is fascinating. I remember the first time I was like excited to see how the diuk in the Gemara, when it says the famous expression is you have a good thought, Hashem, it's considered like Hashem, like you did it. It's famous. There's a number of Maimori Azal. One of them the Alter Rebbe brings over here, but the classic one, it says, if you think about Machshavat Teva, the Rebbe says, Malala V'Kosov Kilasai, the pasuk, it says if you did it, because you thought about it. But if you look into the one Maimori Azal, in which Alter Rebbe is bringing over here, it says, a good thought, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mitzaref L'Maisa, Hashem connects it to action. Now, on the surface it means that if you have a good thought, it's considered as if you did it. But if you look into the wording, right? You look into the wording, when you say a good thought is connected to the action, Hashem links it, bridges the thought to the action. Doesn't that itself say that there's action already? That itself says there's action. So what do I need? So if that's the case, what do I need the thought? When you say that a good thought Hashem connects to action, that itself says that there is already the thought and there's already the action. They're disconnected, and Hashem pulls the chains together. So the question is, if there's action already, what is machshavat teva? What is this thought which is ultimately bringing to the as if you did it? In other words, if it's as if you did it, so what do we have the action? If you have the action, what's the relevance of the good thought? Okay, you see the just to grammatically, just to understand this. When you say the word machshavat teva HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzaref l'maisa, literally, or on the surface, it means you have a good thought, and Hashem is going to consider as if you did it. But if you delve into the wording, you will see that it's not really saying that. Machshavat teva HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzaref l'maisa means there's machshavat teva, there is maisa, and they're missing the connection. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzaref, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making the connection. It means to say that itself says that there is a thought and there is action. And the question is, if there is a thought and there is action, what do you need the connection? So the Alter Rebbe says, according to what we said over here, this works beautiful. Because here you're dealing with a yid that the love and fear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is missing. That link is missing. You have the machshavat teva, which means that machshavat teva, that determination of mind. Yes, I'm going to continue with the relationship. You have the person's action because he's being a frum yid and he's eisik v'teira mitzvahs. But you're missing the link. What link are we missing? Missing the link of heart. There, what Hashem is doing is bringing the machshavat teva to that action. In other words, as if you occupied yourself in the Torah mitzvahs with a fervorous love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or a reverence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because again you're missing that link. That's what Hashem does. So here we again, this is the Alter Rebbe teaches zerom razal b'machshavat teva HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzaref l'maisa. Means to say so if the message is that your thought is considered as if you did it, so that the Gemara, the Medrash says, Malal V'Kosov is considered as if you did it. When we say Machshavat Teva HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzaref l'maisa, means there is a thought and there is action. Means to say thought, speech, and action. You're performing Teva, but there's missing the link. So now we can understand, because the person has Machshava again. The person has Machshava means it's a structured mind, and he understands that the relationship has to go on despite that dominant feeling. Therefore, he's going to perform his Torah mitzvahs, he's going to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. The problem is he's missing the love and fear. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to link the two as if you did it with love and fear. And that's what he says, Al-Inyan. Why in the end of the day do you need the link? In other words, on one hand you said that this is adequate, this is enough. The new set of wings is the mind. That determination, that clear dictate of the mind which wants to make sure that the relationship is never interrupted. So one hand we say, okay, those are going to be the wings to elevate the Torah mitzvah. On the other hand we say the Eibishter has to kick in with his mitziruf, with his connection. We say he has to kind of push in the idea of the elevation of the Torah mitzvahs as if it was done with love and fear. What's wrong with the tvuna? What's wrong with the establishment of the mind to be wings for this mitzvah? And the answer is, and here the Alter Rebbe is going to explain over here, that in the end of the day, what's connected more to man is his heart much more than his mind. The famous expression, it says, accept the truth from one who said it. If someone says something intellectually, which means if it intellectually makes sense, it doesn't matter really who the person is. If he said something true, accept it. That's what he said. That's what it's it's irrelevant if he said something again and he didn't put his 2 cents in, it makes sense intellectually, why should you accept it? As opposed to when a person says something because he's angry or he feels a certain way, he's inclined to something for whatever reason, then there's such a strong notion of subjectivity. You can't say it's an idea. It's not an idea, it's the person. It's not the idea, it's the person, because he was emotionally involved in this statement. So in the end of the day, what is more connected to man itself? The heart is connected to the man. You want to see the person, it's not only what a person could be rotten, and the same rotten person could give a good class of being kind and to live a non-rotten type of life and deal with people not on a rotten level. Because intellectually, people, the intellectual dimension of man is completely removed from man. If you want to see what the person is, it's emotionally, or the way he expresses himself with his emotions, that demonstrates who he is, not his intellect, because intellect is something by definition is a transcendent koach. It's expression of, it's the transcendent dimension of man. Emotions, that's what the person is. He's angry, he's kind, he's loving, he's affectionate. This is who he is. The emotions demonstrate who the person is, what state he is in. Intellect rather is something by definition, something very removed. So because we need these wings, ultimately have to get the body of Torah mitzvahs up on high. So that's why, in essence, the heart plays a much greater role, or ideally, the true wings to the Torah mitzvahs is the heart, much more than the mind, because the heart is ultimately something which is connected to my thought, speech, and action. My intellect is removed from my thought, speech, and action, because again, intellect by definition is a transcended koach. Heart is a koach, or it's an expression which is connected to my thought, speech, and action. So because it's connected, right, the heart is something more connected to the person, as opposed to intellect is transcended, is abstract of the person. So when you need the wings to elevate the body of Torah mitzvahs, to take them Torah mitzvahs, which is an expression of my thought, speech, and action, of me, of who I am, of my speech, of my thought, and my action. So what is going to be the best set of wings to elevate the Torah mitzvahs? Precisely heart, because heart is connected to my thought, to me, which is again my thought, speech, and action. Intellect is something abstract. So therefore, we need HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring the two together, because the intellect is so abstract, and what's the driving force behind my Torah mitzvahs is only the intellectual driving force, or the intellectual calculation that I made, my determination, again, based on intellectually based, which is telling me, Yasa, continue with the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu despite you don't feel. That is the driving force behind my Torah mitzvahs. But there's a problem. That really cannot be the wings for the Torah mitzvahs, because intellect by definition is something which is abstract. Intellect by definition is something which is transcendent. So how could this, which is all the way up there, be the wings to the machshava dibra ma'aseh, to my performance of Torah mitzvahs with my thought, speech, and action, which is me, down over here? When it comes to feelings, even though feelings is also something within the person, but it's something which is associated with the person. It leads to a thought, it leads to speech. There's a connection. You feel good about somebody, your speech is different. You think good, you feel negative about something, your speech is also different. In other words, it's something which is so close to the performance of man's relationship with others, and in this case, relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's why, ideally, love and fear are the wings which are going to elevate the Torah mitzvahs, because that is connected to my thought, speech, and action. Intellect is something abstract. Therefore, the Rebbe explains the Gemara, therefore, it's not ideal. In other words, the fact that the tevuna, the driving force behind the Torah mitzvahs is just more of an intellectual calculation, it's not ideal wings. Because again, intellect is something which is abstract, so it's not ideal wings which would connect to the performance of Torah mitzvahs, to be wings again, to elevate it on high within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, we need HaKadosh Baruch Hu to connect, again, to make the connect between machshava, my intellectual calculation over here, my determination to go on with the relationship with Hashem, and the Maisa. We need them to come together, and that's what Hashem links the two. Mitzarfa, He links the two as if you did it with a fervorous love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hence ultimately the mitzvahs will be indeed elevated on high. We'll finish over here, but we could just read a little bit just to get a little more of the text. The Eloha Inyan, which you basically continued, but if we just said a little. Where's Eloha Inyan? Are we? Eloha Inyan. Actually, the line begins Eloha Inyan. Eloha Inyan. The line begins. Okay, join the two together, or Eloha Inyan on the right side. So we're just going to read a little bit more of the text of Eloha Inyan. It's basically just repeating what we just said orally. When you're dealing with love and fear, and love which is in a revealed manner of his heart, and a revealed expression of his heart, and manifest expression. And when the love and the fear and love stand in a state of manifestation, so usually they're perfect wings to invest in the performance of mitzvahs, to give them life, to elevate them on high. And again, because now let me even add something we didn't say before, which means ultimately the heart is something which is also chumri, which is a mundane limb, like all the other limbs, which are the klei hamaisa, the kelim of action. The only thing is, it's pnimi v'chayis lahem. It's something which is an inward type of limb. It therefore produces the vitality, the energy to the thought, speech, and action. But on the other hand, they have the common denominator that it's a heart, it's a physical heart, similar to the physical action, or even speech, or even thought. But because it's physical, and again it's related to the thought, speech, and action, therefore therefore it could invest in the Torah mitzvahs to be wings to elevate them on high, as opposed to the love and fear, which again comes from the mind, the hidden, when the heart does not stand in a state of expression, the heart does not stand in a state of manifestation, and that's the lashon talumid, the recesses of the heart. When the heart it's more tvunas meiches, something when I made up in my mind, the idea of yasa. I'm convinced that the relationship must go on, and because mind is so abstract, mind is so transcendent, therefore is completely removed from the action, and therefore ideally it's not the good pair, in other words, not the good set of wings which would have the accomplishment to elevate the Maisa, because it's so removed from the Maisa. On its own, they cannot invest in the actions of the mitzvahs, that they should be ultimately the living force and the drive behind the Torah mitzvahs, that again the set of wings to elevate the Torah mitzvahs on high. On its own. Again, because mind, intellect is removed, intellect is separated, intellect is transcendent from Maisa HaMitzvahs. And this is the bonus when Hashem comes in and says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfon u'mechabron b'chinas HaMaisa, the Eibishter makes the connection and combines them to the Maisa. This is called Machshavat Teva. Again, what the Gemara says, the Machshavat Teva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfon Maisa, this is the Machshavat Teva, the way the Eibishter, Hashem is the one who establishes that this is going to be the wings to elevate the mitzvahs on high, because you cannot call it love and fear, because love and fear is something which is usually used when the love is in a state of manifestation, the fear is in a state of manifestation, their love and fear is a state of a revelation in the heart. That's the term, the real term of love and fear. In this case, because they're more inward, they're not in a state of expression, full expression. It's just something which is more hidden within the structured mind, therefore they're not called Avaviyir, they're called Machshavat Teva. Again, because they're in the recesses of the heart, and something which is associated with brain, with determination, and therefore they're not called Chilur Chima, they're called Machshavat Teva. But nonetheless, Hashem again links the two, Machshavat Teva, with the Maisa, as if the person served the Kodesh Baruch Hu with overt love and fear, with a complete expression of love and fear. Hence, in the end of the day, the Torah mitzvahs is elevated on high in the place which it should be elevated, to touch the deeper core of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as if the person did it with revealed love and fear. So we're going to stop over here, even though there's a little piece over here, but I think it's a bit late. even though I had in mind to finish the Pedic, but at least we got the complete picture of what the great bonus of Hashem, which is completely conscious about every detail in our Avodas Hashem. It's not just he settles Torah and he says, love me and fear me, and if you don't, I'm upset. No, Hashem is very, very not only conscious, obviously he's conscious about everything, but he's very in tuned to our ups and downs in our Avodas Hashem. In other words, here we're not talking about ups and downs, chas v'shalom, in something that we're down, that we go away from Torah mitzvahs. No, here you're dealing with someone who's a frumi yid. He does Torah mitzvahs, and he never wants to let go of Torah mitzvahs. But the fact is that his feelings, his overt feelings to HaKadosh Baruch Hu may sometimes subside, maybe on a down. Hashem is in tune to that, and Hashem says, as long as you keep on trucking, as long as you understand the relationship has to go on despite you don't have that feeling, I'll already be mitzaref, I'll make the link, I'll bridge the two together, and as if you did Torah mitzvahs with love and fear, hence your Torah mitzvahs are going to be elevated on high to a deeper core within myself, and again, hence, as a result, our relationship will be more of a pnimistic in a deeper and a more sentimental level. Again, the Eibishter and the Yid. Have a wonderful evening.